Hi, my name is Soren Shah and I'm a senior program manager in the HDInsight team. In this recording, I'm going to show you how you can configure domain joined HDInsight clusters using PowerShell. As you may already be aware, HDInsight recently released a multi-user functionality where your cluster nodes are joined to your Active Directory domain and users from your Active Directory will be able to log on to the clusters using their own domain credentials. Now I want to show you in this video how you can configure your Azure Active Directory and also configure Azure Active Directory domain services so that you can create HDInsight clusters joined to your domain. So first I'll go to Microsoft.manage.windowsazure.com. This is the classic Azure portal. And I want to create a new Azure Active Directory over here. Now you may already have an Azure Active Directory already present for your organization, and that's fine. You can use that one too. So here I create a new Active Directory. And I'll just name it HDI tool demo. Select the region as United States. While the directory is being created, I'm going to create some new users in the directory. So let me go to the directory first. These are all the active directories I have, and that's the HDI tool demo. So going to the users tab, I'm going to create some new users. So let me call the first user as cluster admin, and I'm going to use this user to create the HDInsight clusters. This user will be by default an administrator on the HDInsight cluster. So cluster administrator. I'm going to define this user as a global admin on this AAD. Now when AAD creates this user, it creates with a temporary password. So the first thing which I'll do is log on as this user and change the password. So I will log on using a new incognito window on manage.windowsazure.com. So cluster admin at HDI tool demo, and use the temporary password to sign in and then change the password. So that's done. I'm going to create a few more users as well, like a developer one user. And you can do similar things with the developer user as well. Log on as the developer user and change the temporary password. I will not do it right now, but you can do it when you actually create the Azure Active Directory and the users. The next thing for me would be to create groups. So for this HDInsight cluster creation and integrating with AAD, we need one group which is a mandatory group, and that's called AAD DC administrators. And this is all defined in this documentation. So even if you forget it, just don't fret. So I'll go to the groups and add a group called AADDC administrators. It's a security group. In the descriptions, I can just say AADDC administrators. And in this group, I will add the user who is going to create the HDInsight clusters, which is the cluster admin user. That did not work. Okay. And I'm going to create one more group, which is just a user group. Let me name this user group as Hive users. So these are the users which will be synced to the HDInsight cluster when we create the cluster, and they will be able to log on. The users in this group will be able to log on to the cluster using their credentials. So in the Hive users group, I'll add the developer account. It takes a while for these groups to be created, so that's why we are running into these errors. Okay, so now that the user groups have been created, now I can go to the configure tab over here and set up Azure Active Directory domain services. If we scroll a little bit down over here, we will see the domain services option and enable domain services for this directory. So I will select yes. And now if I see the domain services, it requires a virtual network to be connected. This virtual network should be a classic virtual network. So let me first go to Azure portal and create a classic virtual network. For this, I'll go to the new Azure portal and not to the classic Azure portal. This is very important because the tool requires the classic portal to be created using the new portal. So this is Virtual Networks Classic, and I will select add from here. So I'll name this as HDI tool demo AD VNet. For the address space, I can choose whatever address space is available. Let's say 10.50.0.0 and 10.50. This is my subscription, and I'll create a new user group called HDI tool demo. Pick a region, say West US, and create. Once the VNet has been created, we can go back to the Active Directory domain services creation and create the domain services within that VNet. So let's give it a minute or so until the VNet is created. On this domain services page, the VNet may not be immediately available, so you may have to refresh this page when the virtual network is actually created, so that this page will then pick up the new virtual network. So now that the virtual network deployment is successful and the VNet has been created, let's go ahead and refresh this page. The ADDS creation takes about 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes it takes about 4 hours. So once we create the ADDS, you can take a break, come back after 4 hours, and then do the rest of the steps of configuring LDAP-S on the ADDS and also configuring the other steps running our PowerShell script. Okay, now that the page has loaded, let's go ahead and look at the domain services part. So I select yes, HDI tool demo is my AD, and here I'll find where is this, the HDI tool demo AD VNet is the one which I just now created. So when I hit save, the domain services will start provisioning domain controllers on this VNet for this AAD. Now this is the step that takes about 2 to 3 hours. So I will come back after that time and start recording the video again. Okay. So I'm checking back after about 3.5 hours now, and it looks like the domain services has been configured. I can see the IP addresses of the domain service instances or the domain controller instances. HDInsight will work with these instances to join the machines to the domain. But before that, I need to finish the configuration. So I can see the configure certificate, and this is used to set up the secure LDAP-S. Now, HDInsight does not recommend or does not allow using self-signed certificates. We should use a real certificate, a real SSL certificate for this domain for setting up the LDAP-S. But if this is a POC, or if this is a cluster which you are trying to just create to play around with it, we can certainly give you an exception. And in fact, for this demo or for this video, I'm going to create a self-signed certificate. So I have this script over here which is going to create a self-signed certificate called HDI tool demo.pfx. This is the password, and that's the subject name or the URL for the certificate. So when I run this script, it's going to create this certificate and it's going to place it under the tool folder on desktop. So let me go ahead and get that. Cert folder HDI tool demo.pfx. I will enter the password, and this is the same password which I had in the script over here, the password, right? So now when I hit enter, the certificate will be uploaded to ADDS and it will start configuring the certificate and setting up the LDAP-S. This takes usually about 5 to 10 minutes, so I will check back after 5 to 10 minutes. So the domain configuration settings have finished. The LDAP-S certificate has been configured, and we can see the secure LDAP-S certificate. Everything with ADDS is done now. There are a few steps needed to set up on the domain, like creating a container, which is creating an OU or organizational unit, and creating some reverse DNS zones. These are pretty fairly complicated and manual steps, so which we have automated using a PowerShell script. The PowerShell script can be found on github.com/hdinsight/domain joint hdinsight. You can go and download the script as a zip file and then unzip it on your machine. So I've already done that over here. That if you look at domain joint hdinsight, and all I have to do is edit this run file and set up the parameters according to my configuration. So if I go to the run file, which is this file, I'll go through all of these variables of what you have to set, and then you can set it and then just run the run file. So the first one is a subscription ID. This is your subscription ID. The second one is a classic VNet resource group name, and that's the HDI tool demo. This is the classic VNet which you created just a few hours before to set up the ADDS instance on that one. And this is the classic VNet name, which is the HDI tool demo AD VNet. I'll just quickly show you these over here. So this is the AD VNet, the classic VNet which we created, and ADDS is configured to that, and that's the resource group name. Then we need to specify the ARM resource group name, and this is the resource group name that will be created for you, and this is the resource group, and this is the VNet which will contain the HDInsight cluster. So ARM resource group name, ARM resource group VNet name, which I specified as HDI tool demo ARM VNet, and the subnet name, I just specified the subnet as a default. Finally, the domain name, which is HDI tool demo at .onmicrosoft.com, and the cluster user groups, and the cluster user groups are the users which you want to be synced to the HDInsight cluster. If you remember here, the cluster user group which we created was Hive user groups, Hive users, and that's what I have specified here. The organizational unit name, or OU, I just specified as HDI OU, and these are the addresses which I want for my ARM VNet. So resource management, resource manager VNet address prefix, and this is the IP address range which I want for my ARM subnet. So for this, and once you have specified all this information, all you have to do is just run the script. It will ask you to log in. So let me just run the script first. First, it will try to log in to classic Azure portal, and it prompts me for this. Let me enter the username, password. Then it will ask me to log in on the ARM Azure portal. So there's one more login. And finally, it will ask me for the credentials of the HDI of the cluster admin user on the HDI tool demo.onmicrosoft.com. And that's the, if you remember, that's the cluster admin user which we created just a few hours ago on the Azure Active Directory, which is the global admin on the Azure Active Directory. Now it doesn't have to be a global admin, it's just for the sake of simplicity I created a domain admin or a global admin user. So here it is now asking me for a login of this guy, which is the cluster administrator, cluster admin at HDI tool demo. So I'm going to add that. One thing to note is that the credential format or the username format should be domain name /username and not username at domain name. And that's it. And now the script will run. It will create the resource group, it will create the ARM VNet, it will create the subnet, it will peer the ARM VNet and the classic VNet. It will then spin up a VM, it will join the VM to your domain, and then it will use the VM to create the organizational unit, to create the reverse DNS zones. Essentially, it will do all the setup for you. Once the script has been done, there will be a JSON file which will be output of the script, and you will use the parameters in the JSON file to create the HDInsight cluster. So the script takes about 20-25 minutes to run, so we'll just let it run and we'll resume the video after the script is done. Okay. Alright, the script has finished running. It has successfully created the ARM resource group, the ARM virtual network, the virtual network peering between the classic VNet and the ARM VNet, the organizational unit, and the reverse DNS zone. It has also placed the output in a secure Hadoop config.json file, and the path to this JSON file is over here. So let me quickly show you how does the JSON file look like. And I don't have a JSON formatter on this notepad, but this is the format. This is the JSON file. You'll find all the information about your domain, like the domain username, the virtual network, the organizational unit, the cluster user group which you provided, the subnet, the LDAPS URL which you need, and your domain name. So let me go ahead and show you how to use this JSON file to create an HDInsight cluster. So you can go to Azure portal, hit new, hit HDInsight, and on this we will just say HDI tool demo. Let the subscription be your whatever subscription. On the cluster type, select Hadoop 3.5 premium, hit select, specify credentials for your cluster and specify the SSH user credentials as well. In the data source, you can select any data source you like. So select HDI33 data source, hit select. On the pricing blade, just specify how many nodes do you need. For this demo, I'm just creating 2-node cluster. And on the advanced configuration, there you'll find a domain joining and a VNet subnet tab. On the VNet subnet blade, here is where I'll specify my ARM virtual network which the tool created. So HDI tool demo ARM VNet and the subnet. And on the domain settings, these are all the information which the tool has output into the JSON file. So let me just copy them one by one. So domain name, that comes from here. That's the domain name. The domain username, and the domain username is the cluster admin username which we created, which we used to set up the domain. The password for the domain name, the organizational unit path, and that's also in the tool over here. The LDAPS URL, which is specified here, And finally, the access user groups, which is just Hive users. And that's it. So you select all this information, just hit select. And in future, we are going to add a button where you can just upload your JSON file and you can create the cluster. So I'll just use the existing resource group HDI tool demo into dashboard and hit create. And within 15 to 20 minutes, your secure HDInsight or secure Hadoop cluster should be ready for you to use and run your jobs. Okay. Thank you for watching the video, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me anytime. Okay. Thank you.